Full.
So Astro Joe and I are doing a live stream. Hi, my name's Stefan Burns. If you're on Astro Joe's channel watching.
And I'm Joseph Anthony, Astrologer Joe. And this is Stefan Burns, who I mentioned in one of the last videos about his videos are really great on understanding the science behind what's going on. And he understands astrology as well. So you can't ask for anything more than that.
Constantly learning a lot of things. Just from the outset, we were talking about this. You know, it's Mercury retrograde. We were here in the back studio for this live stream for like 30 minutes, testing everything. And so it seems to be working. But just bear in mind, if there's any tech issues, please grace.
We're going to blame Mercury on that, you know. And then we have the increased energy from the Lion's Gate coming in here, and maybe we should explain to some people what the Lion's Gate actually is. I mean, I did a brief understanding of what it is, but I actually have a slide here, but I already covered that slide in the last presentation. It's basically in alignment with Sirius, Orion's belt, and the Earth, correct? Do you get the same thing, Stefan?
Well, I think of it more from a numerology perspective, but it's clearly an energy spike. Just because it does condense activity and people and talk and buzz and everything onto 8-8. So it's a lot of things simultaneously.
Exactly.
I didn't know about this Sirius Orion thing.
Well, you see, the thing is, studying some of the other fantastic people on YouTube, especially Jason Bershears, who I talk about quite a bit, and I've read many of his books. He talks about how these ancient cultures had a different type of astrology, and Sirius and Orion and Alpha Draconian and some of the other star systems were the systems that they used for alignments. They weren't using our modern day astrology as we know it today. That was the Greeks that came in later on that perfected astrology. So, you know, these ancient cultures knew about this so-called Lion's Gate, you know, especially since when we look at the pyramids in Egypt, they're perfectly aligned with what? Right? Orion's belt. So we know there's a connection, whether it's a marker for them or, you know, a post, whatever it is, they know energy. They know and understand energy. The other thing I want to say, Stefan, is that everything in this universe is made up of light and sound. We know this from a physics standpoint.
Yeah.
And so as the frequencies come in, as the alignments come in, there are different tones and different frequencies that are hitting the Earth's magnetic fields. Okay. And nobody talks about this. I never hear anybody talking about this, and science won't touch it, you know, because let's face it, most of science is controlled, you know. And so, but these are frequencies that come in and hit the Earth and they hit us and we feel them. Am I correct in saying that?
Yeah. I mean, I think our models of understanding this are really limited. So it's much more complex and multifaceted, and there's a much greater whole behind it, but it's not like we're completely dumb, right? We've learned some things, especially if we take in everything that's been observed over time. I think a lot of times people disrespect the collective effort. And so, for example, like scientists back in the day doing a lot of work, you know, traveling across the world, making magnetic measurements, for example, in the 1700s. And nowadays people are like, oh, well, that's just all false. It's like, no, these people were risking their lives on these creaky wooden boats, collecting these magnetic field measurements, and they may not be as accurate as now, but they did a lot of great discovery back then. And we're standing on top of all that. And that goes back to astrology and the ancients and the Egyptians, Sumerians, Babylonians, even before that, like the people of Göbekli Tepe and before. And so, like, we've learned a lot, you know, we're not completely clueless. And there's definitely, I mean, I went to the pyramids last year and like that, you could feel those energies. I was with an energy sensitive girl in the Great Pyramid. We met at the pyramids and just kind of hung out for the day. And she got like all flushed and she's like, whoa, like she was really reacting. And then for me, my YouTube channel blew up within a month after I did my Egypt trip. Because all those energies just like change my resonance and just it all of a sudden it happened. Absolutely. So we see you all in the chat, by the way, everyone. Thank you. God bless for being here. We'll do a Q&A probably at the end.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I read one comment, and Laura, I think it was, she said that the Lion's Gate is a midpoint between the solstice and the equinox. And I think she's correct with that. Again, they're portals, they're energy fields, you know. And getting back to the Egyptian pyramids, you're absolutely right. They are energy centers. They are some form, and they didn't look like this. They had white capstone. They were
Yeah.
white at one time, with gold. And so these things were really powering up something. They were generating energy out of the air. I think Nikola Tesla had it right, where he said that you could literally pull power out of the air. And these devices, and there are many of them around the world. According to the researchers, they found so many pyramids around the world, and they seem to all be in line with each other. So there's something going on where these ancient cultures understood magnetic fields, they understood alignments to the skies. And whoever built these pyramids, which we have a pretty good idea who did it, were highly technological humans or humanoids or whatever you want to call them, that understood these cycles and patterns, and they held these in place to hold a certain frequency. So everyone that goes to the pyramids has the same experience. They feel supercharged. They feel energy that they just been, it's been lit up. Something lit them up. And so absolutely, I would totally agree with that. And like I said earlier, and we all know this, that these align with Orion's belt.
Yeah.
And supposedly, we've had people from Orion, or the consciousness from Orion on this earth influencing this. And I don't know if you've discovered this, Stefan, but my research shows that we've had many different races who have come here or have traveled through dimensions or wormholes or timelines, whatever you want to call it, and seem to be influencing humanity in some way or some capacity, even still until today. Did you get that same information? Did you go down that same rabbit hole to discover the same thing?
Well, I mean, I definitely believe in extraterrestrials, and I mean, there just seems to be too much evidence of some influence across time, cultures, different periods, and it just makes sense. I mean, Earth is a very habitable planet, so you could think of this kind of being like a little bit of a backwater pit stop. And some people or some intelligences that are a little bit more in our 3D kind of reality as we are would take an interest to that. But as it relates to like some of the ideals of Ismail Perez and like cosmic origins and things of that nature, I definitely want to do more research and kind of intuitive truthing on. But I have been a lot of these ancient sites, as many as I can in my limited lifespan so far, and there's some weird stuff. Pyramids are one of them, and there's a whole bunch in South America that I would like to get to, and we're discovering new ones all the time. So I don't underestimate humanity. I think we've done a lot of really cool stuff that people say, or they say, okay, this was definitely aliens. Like, no, I think that we're pretty cool too. Like, we could do that if we really developed our skills. But at the same time, who's to say not? That's the thing. There's so many things that we look at right now that we're so sure, but our data observation limit is so small. And unless you're actually back at the time period, you can't really say otherwise.
Exactly. I totally agree. And I do agree with you that I think some of these sites were actually built by humans with technology, advanced technology that they got from somewhere. I don't know who, where, but from my research, we've had, and it shows overwhelmingly that humans were involved somehow, some way. They might not have been from this planet or this region, but they were human. And then, of course, we have some form of extraterrestrial as well that doesn't look like us, that seems to be, in the ancient cultures as well. So it's hard to say, who did what, but it definitely points in that direction. That's what I'm seeing.
It's part of the problem is that there's a greater polarization in a lot of things right now. So there is all this ancient evidence and stuff, but then at the same time, like, I mean, I kind of got a feeling and a glimpse of this the past 2 days because I've noticed this drop in earthquakes globally. And then we had this earthquake swarm in California. And I could feel the little bit pulling at me, like, exaggerate this, pump it up, let's go. Like, let's talk, and I think some people start very much like kind of centered and grounded, and then they're easily step by step led into more grandiose things.
Mm-hmm.
And so what comes off initially as an interest in like, oh, maybe there is some sort of ancient history that we're unaware of, turns into like, I know exactly the timeline of humanity because it gets views and eyeballs and things. It helps them
Right.
sell books and all this stuff. And that's certainly a component. And so what happens is now you have super confidence, ego, pride here, and the mainstream scientific group will then polarize against that and say, okay, well, there's nothing there. And that's why we really need to stay grounded. And yeah, Lionsgate is right basically in between the equinoxes. So we are at that kind of middle ground point between the two energies of solstice and equinox. That's what I meant. And we also have the sun right now polarizing things. Like we just had an X flare today, 1.3, just a couple hours ago, actually, folks. And that is launching from that Earth direct bullseye zone, not from Big Mama. I'll show her behind me in a little bit, but we'll see if that pushes out a solar storm. But I mean, the sun right now is so active, also discharging these energies. And then we have all the crazy astrology of August, which we're going to talk about too.
Absolutely. I mentioned this as well because the sun is at its high point right now in the sky. That, you know, it does pull on the Earth's magnetic fields. And so there's a greater chance of activity. Now, as Mercury is retrograding, going back, it's actually going to, you know, be closer to the sun. I mean, to the Earth. This will also create some sort of magnetic field as well. But I'm watching one of your videos where you actually showed Mercury on one side and Uranus on the other, and you could clearly see, and this was a couple of videos back, how the sun was almost like being teased and it acted up. It started acting very weird, and all of a sudden it gave off all of these flares almost simultaneously. And that's the kind of energy we have this month, Stefan.
So we had a Leo new moon at 12 degrees. One of the interesting things about 12 degrees is that's the same moon placement that Emperor Nero had.
Interesting.
He also had a really interesting stellium in Sagittarius, but that is his moon placement. It's also my moon placement.
Interesting.
And then also a double Capricorn moon sequence was really interesting. That full moon sequence that really lit up all like the USA energies, and that's going to be coming back. I feel like it's a preview for later, like this fall. But what do we have leading up to this Aquarius full moon? We'll talk about that. But what do we have big transits coming up? We have the Jupiter-Mars conjunction. Is that the biggest one?
That is the biggest one, and it comes into formation around the 10th, 11th, and 12th, and it highlights exactly conjuncts on the 14th. Now, Mars and Jupiter will be in Gemini, the sign of communication. So anything to do with communication may start to act up. You know, internet, telephone systems, whatever. It's just going to really get act up. And what makes it so difficult, not because it's a Mars-Jupiter conjunction, that enough is plenty of energy, but it begins to square Saturn in Pisces, which is confusion or restriction or something new that comes in that's not working exactly the way it's supposed to. And what's really tricky about these alignments is that Mercury, the ruler of Gemini, is in retrograde all the way till the 28th.
Yeah.
So we could have a lot of confusion, misunderstandings, you know, breakdowns. We've already seen some of that. About a week and a half, 2 weeks ago, we had the CrowdStrike thing that I mentioned, and it knocked down airplanes. You know, there were all kinds of delays. There were all kinds of technological issues. And so there is that strong possibility after about the 12th, especially around the 14th, all the way through the August the 22nd, we are in what I call the danger zone or the chaos zone, because it's like a wild card. And,
what orb would we put on Mars? A 3-degree orb?
Yeah, at least a 3-degree. Most astrologers go up to 5, but 3-degree will be fine.
So if you keep it really conservative and tight, 3-degree orb, that puts us, that gives us a pretty big window, because they're 1.5 degrees apart for the full moon, which is the 19th.
Exactly. Still in the zone. It's usually up to 2 weeks on either side as the energy's coming in and as the energy's leaving. It's still active, you know, just not as strong as an exact conjunction. on the 14th.
I'm actually kind of liking these energies. If I had to kind of just voice my own thoughts and my opinion, like I feel like there's some things that need to be broken and break out. And I'm glad that these T squares are happening in mutable signs that can allow for that change. Because if it was in like fixed signs, then it would be really maybe like kind of earthquake type energy where it's like sudden break and then just everything goes nuts. But the mutable, there's more chance for like reorganization, hopefully in a more harmonious way. But
no, I mean the energies. Here's what I think is going on, and we'll go back. I don't know if you've seen me talk about this, but I'm very intuitive. I've always been very intuitive, like many people, very intuitive and understanding cycles and patterns. But back in 2009, I kept getting visions of cosmic energy coming in from the center of space, where we call the Milky Way. And I believe, and there's science to prove this, there seems to be some sort of cosmic waves coming in from the galactic center. Have you researched any of this? Have you noticed a pattern or anyone sort of describing this cosmic energy coming in from, the center of space at all?
Yeah, there is evidence. I mean, if there's any sort of like kind of cyclical rhythmic activity to the center, it'll propagate out. But the question is like how?
Right.
You can have like a dust wave. Well, dust isn't traveling at the speed of light, so dust will carry charge and everything. Like where are we in the interstellar medium as it relates to like nebulas and dust? We're in a void right now.
Right.
If they're waves in terms of like plasma, then that's a different equation. And if there's like the electromagnetic field, the plasma would be carried on top of that. So they do see these waves, but whether, and we're definitely, since they're always happening, we're probably somewhere in that wave cycle. But as it relates to us just kind of being all of a sudden hit by like some tsunami wave of like galactic energy, I'm not so sure, but I need to do a lot more research into it. It's kind of difficult to do in the first place because we are just on Earth, just this little tiny point from a single perspective. So that's really what limits our ability to understand this qualitatively.
Well, I'm a big believer in meditation and tuning into things outside of this physical realm. I've always done this, and I've also experimented with ayahuasca and magic mushrooms on several occasions just to go down that road and see if I got more information. So I did have that information validated in some of those experiences that I had, where it clearly showed me these bluish white waves of light coming towards the earth. And it actually gave me timelines. Remember, my consciousness kind of left my body and I was literally in space and I could feel and see everything. And it was because I was directing it. This is the thing what people don't understand is you have the power and the ability to direct your own consciousness. And so I was shown this, in 2009, I saw it in my kitchen, just doing something randomly in the kitchen. It kept coming to me. And there was no ayahuasca or anything of that nature. But then when I did the ayahuasca and the magic mushrooms a few years later, that information was really brought out. And it said something about cosmic energies coming in. It's shifting. It is a positive energy that's coming in. It's doing something to your DNA. You will become more aware. You'll become more intuitive. And it was, talking about collectively. And so it was very interesting, and now I understand it completely. What it was saying, that there was an energy shift that was coming in, and that it was changing the frequencies, which the spiritual community knows. Raise the vibration, sort of thing. So that's happening simultaneously as we become more intuitive and we become more aware of the lies and manipulations and all this other stuff. It's like it's given us superpowers, and so we could see that. And the astrology matches that. I mean, when you look at Pluto in Aquarius, so Pluto in Capricorn, and then we see, Uranus that's going to go into Gemini. These are powerful alignments. They're going to reveal things to us. The information is just going to keep coming out. And so there is a great awakening that's occurring, but there's also positive energy coming in. And so it's the energy that's shifting everything. And by 2026, we're going to have a different society or a different view of the world because the outer planets are going to be making favorable alignments.
Yeah, I joked around with this in a recent video. People were like, 2024 August, end of this year. And I was like, it's not going to be the end of the world. There's a lot of big stuff happening. I was like, 2026 is the end of the world. That was a joke. But that shift of Saturn and Neptune into Aries and meeting at the 0 degrees, Saturn warming it up in 2025. They almost meet at 2 degrees. They're only like 13 or 14 arc minutes apart. They get very close. And then in 2026, they finally do that conjunction at 0. That seems really big.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, and we're also going into the first sign of the zodiac, which is Aries at 0 degrees. So something new is coming out of all this. Saturn and Neptune will be at that 0 degree point. And then later on, you have Uranus switching finally out of Taurus, because it does not work well in Taurus, going into Gemini, the sign of communication and duality and information. So we are going to see something new come into being, whether it's new satellite systems, new awarenesses, new financial matters, new information that we, are rediscovering or need to implement. Computing is going to be really strong, obviously. And so there's going to be a lot of this stuff that comes into play. And so it's like a new world. It's absolutely, we won't be living in the same vibration anymore. And these are higher vibrations, by the way. Aries, Gemini energy is like, restless. I don't want to sleep. I want to know. I want to go do. And so we're going to have a need for less sleep, and there'll be more excitement about doing more of what we can do.
I know Aries. My mom is an Aries, and she forgot to ship something out to me in the original shipment. So she's like, okay, I'll ship it back. Do you need anything? And she then went to the store less than an hour after that message, like, oh, I already shipped it. I was like, you didn't even give me an hour to respond, saying I wanted this jacket, I wanted that thing. She's like, nope, just done. It's like, you'll see it again later. And so we have, 2 big outer planets, Neptune being not the traditional, but, the biggest big planet.
Right.
I think there is kind of a category, dwarf planets, which is in Pluto. That's really much a different category. Neptune's the biggest outer planet, and then Saturn is that traditional outer edge, both moving in. And then, I guess Uranus will be trine, and then Pluto will be, sextile, and then Pluto will be sextile. So that Yod is continuing too. But the Yod is now shifting all to more of the masculine energies as well.
Exactly. The other thing about Aries represents the self. It's the individual. It's not just the beginning stages. So wherever Aries is in one's chart, that's the area where you're constantly looking for challenges. You're motivating yourself to move forward. But it's the self reinventing itself. So Saturn's influence and Neptune's influence actually works well together. Saturn likes the restriction and the structure, and Neptune is the imagination and the intuition. So we have Saturn and Neptune right now. So we kind of see this sort of methodical, slow development of consciousness and awareness and spirituality, at the same time dissolving the old belief systems and the old structures that need to go away. And so we're going to continue to have that in a stronger way. And it might involve things like the military. The military may go through a major transformation beginning in 2026. That
alignment seems very militant to me.
It does. It absolutely. Again, we're talking about restless energy. We're not talking about docile, passive energy anymore after 2026. And so we are in that zone right now. 2024, 2025. These energies are going to continue to ramp up, and I'm seeing a lot of people, unfortunately, losing their grip on reality because of the uncertainty of everything and the confusion. And the sad part for me is the fact that people give away their power and their beliefs watching things like politics or religious leaders because they're looking for some sort of hope and understanding. But this energy is about the individual waking up to their own power and their own realization of who they are. And that's the biggest frustration for someone like myself, yourself, and our listeners that understand things at a deeper level, that we are consciousness.
Yeah, I did a part of my Planetary Residences e-course. I just launched this about a month ago. I
Uh-huh.
did a deep dive into the astrological ages, and I did some calculations
Mm-hmm.
because we don't really know the actual alignments back in the day. We have our rate
Right.
of precession now, but was it faster or slower back then?
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of different theories out there. So
Yes.
I did some calculations that lined up pretty nicely with what we actually see in the historic record.
Mm-hmm.
And the age of Aries goes in my calculations, goes from 1400 BCE to 200 CE.
Right.
And so that incorporates a lot of the great mystics and philosophers. You have Confucius, you have
Mm-hmm.
Taoism, you have Buddha, Hinduism.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, the Vedas were written before this, but you have them flourishing during this time. And then you have at the very end, if you go all the way to 200 AD, then you have Jesus. And so that was all Age of Aries. It was a very militant time. There was a lot of warfare back then, but there was
Right.
also a huge enlightenment burst that happened.
Sure.
And then when we had the Renaissance and the great age of exploration and enlightenment, let's say like 1600 1800, that zone,
Right.
that was also a lot of outer planet synodic cycles meeting in fire signs. And
Right.
so now with Saturn and Neptune moving into Aries at that 0 degree, that is going to bring about, I would imagine, more militant kind of energy, but also
Mm-hmm.
more of this like philosopher energy. And that first decan is ruled by Mars, and that first term is ruled by Mars.
Mm-hmm.
So it's Aries, which is ruled by Mars, first decan's ruled by Mars, first term's ruled by Mars. So it's like Mars, 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 Mars,
Right.
Aries is boom. It's going to be wild. I
It's
think
it,
also your psychosis thing. I think a lot of people do have like this psychosis. Not everything is conspiracy theory. So many like deceptions and lies out there. I think a lot of that's going to get burned away.
Absolutely. The thing that I see though is the restlessness that's going to occur, because we're talking about Aries energy, we're talking about Mars energy, and it's going to be at play, and it's working well with all the air that's going to be involved, like Pluto in Aquarius, and not Jupiter, Uranus in Gemini.
Mm-hmm.
So these two work well together. So communication will continue, and unfortunately, around the world, the conflicts are not going to go away, because this is energy that needs to sort of channel itself. It needs to come out somewhere,
Mm-hmm.
somehow. So
Yeah, I
we
see.
will see pockets of euphoria and people being happy and content. Like if you go around the world right now, in some of the South American states and other parts of the world, it's like they're living in their own world. They're
Costa Rica.
happy, right? Exact. Costa Rica. And they're happy, or even from Mexico for that case.
Yeah.
But
Mm-hmm.
but then you have places like right now, like England, the United States, and some other countries, Ukraine or whatever
I've
else.
been to Ukraine last year. Yeah.
Have you? So you see conflict there. So we'll continue to see these, two dichotomies going on simultaneously. But as internal, depending on your birth chart and when you came in, you'll see how it affects you personally. If you have strong Aries in your chart, you will be restless. You will want to try, travel and explore and be challenged in ways that you've never been challenged before. And if you're a water sign, same thing. You're going to feel restless, and family dynamics and so on and so forth. So it's a very interesting time where the energy is going to be very strong, very much motivating. We're going to be absolutely motivated to do more or want to do more, as we let go of the old ways, as we let go of the old belief systems, the thinking that is falling apart, that is going away. And that includes things like politics, religious beliefs, monetary beliefs, corporations. These things will slowly begin to transform right before our eyes. It's already happening, actually. And so we're going to continue to see that evolution taking place, because of humanity's consciousness wants to start something new, and it wants to sort of assert itself in a new direction, which I'm all for. But I get a lot of people ask me, when's it going to get better? When's it going to get better? I'm like, nah, let's see, when you're in the ground, when you're finally not here anymore, because the energy from this point forward is not about stability. it's about adaptability. The
Yeah.
more you can adapt, the more you get to understand things at a deeper level, the more you understand who you are and what's been going on, the easier life will become for you. If you're going to hold on to your old beliefs that I'm this and I'm that, and no, I don't want to do this, you're going to have a real tough time of life in the near future.
Yeah, what's our definition of the word better? I think sometimes the past is like the good old times. Everything in the past is always seen as better, but it doesn't necessarily mean so. We also have Jupiter and Leo during that transit too.
That's right.
So we have a lot of condensation in fire and air, and so yeah, it's gonna be big, and we'll be at the tail end of solar cycle 25 maximum. And
Right.
so we'll now have just finished this massive solar loading phase. And what we see with the geophysics is that the Earth keeps taking these energies in. Sometimes it dissipates some through like an earthquake. We had a 7.1 today in Japan, right? And that
Right.
struck Japan right as we have all this crazy financial turmoil in Japan.
Okay.
So that's kind of coincidental, but what we see is that the Earth continues to take in solar energy and then only starts to release it geophysically in mass once that pressure is taken off. And so it's like a balloon, you're blowing up, and once you stop blowing it up and you open it up, then it comes out. And so Earth itself will be pushing these energies out starting in 26, 27, 28, 29, going through solar minimum, which goes into the early 2030s.
Right.
And so how that's going to express itself is kind of an unknown, but definitely more earthquakes during the descending phase and minimum phase. But then how it affects natural energy fields like the Schumann resonances, we'll kind of have to wait and find out.
Right. Right. Well, I totally agree. The Earth seems to be getting bombarded from different angles, not just the astrology pulling on it, and this cosmic energy coming in, and some speculate there's another object or a dwarf star or something else in the background that's also causing this change to the sun and its magnetic fields. And so this is also part of the equation that some of us know about, but we can't really talk about it. And so this is the what we're up against. But this will all reveal itself. This will all come out in due time, because there's no way we could put the genie back in the bottle once it's out. And that's what's happening right now, is because of technology and the advancement of technology, and it will continue to advance technology and information unless something major happens. This is going to be an issue. And so this is what we're up against. But right now, from now until I would say May of 2025, the energy is very unstable, which means change, which means disruption, which means Earth activity as well. And of course, I can't discount that it is being manipulated as well, from different sources, from different ways of doing things. I don't know if you follow the channel Into Thin Air. I've posted a couple of his videos. He's basically just following these weird anomalies that are coming out of Antarctica. And, he's just showing you what the satellites are showing you. And it seems to be these radio waves or these pulses of energy that are coming out of Antarctica that seem to be influencing the weather or frequencies. So we know there's some sort of manipulation as well that's taking place. And I've known about this for many years, and we can't discount that as well. So it's all about the frequencies right now. The more we let the frequencies affect us, the more we lose our sense of reality and we lose our sense of humanity. And I'm just, a messenger here trying to warn people, hey, don't live in fear. We have some really challenging energy coming in. And remember who you are, do the best you can, and go in the direction that you feel you have to go in, because these are going to be earth changes. These are going to be physical changes. These are going to be belief systems. This is all being activated at the same time, because we live in multidimensional world. We live in a multidimensional world. This is just a 3D version. And so it's all sort of coming at us all at once. And it can be overwhelming, absolutely overwhelming at times.
Yeah, if you stay in 3D, the other thing that happened when I went to the pyramids last year is I was also reading at the same time the book Science, Order, and Creativity by David Bohm. And it maybe is a little too kind of logical and dry for some people, but it goes very nicely into how the three are combined. And specifically, it spent a lot of time on order and chaos. And so it talked about how chaos is just an order beyond our perception. And he used like random number generators to illustrate. Like if you have the code for a random number generator, it's a very simple equation. But if you're on the other end getting your Amazon one-time password, you won't be able to guess it. But if you were able to just go up to that dimension, then the answer reveals itself. And so that's why I think during these moments where the chaos increases in our 3D reality, if you are more aligned with your path, which is higher dimensional by default, what I call my soul purpose life mission, and you are walking on that path and listening to intuition and following spirit, then that chaos actually reveals its order and a lot of opportunities with that order. And so it's only really a kind of difficult journey when you're off of that path to a greater degree. And yeah, there's going to be collective turmoil because collectively, humanity, are we on our path or not? Right. And I would say we're kind of trying to figure that out right now. But that book has helped me tremendously. So if anyone wants something that's a little bit more kind of grounded in good English and science, you could read that book by David Bohm, Science, Order, and Creativity. But yeah, I mean, I see a lot of big changes happening already. It started really in 2020, that great mutation into air.
Well, as I've been saying all along and many others, is that we are in this great awakening. And what are we awakening to? That we live in a multidimensional world, that we are multidimensional consciousness. And I hear this often, what's the purpose of life? What's the purpose of being here? And I've come to the conclusion there's only one purpose. It's to have physical experiences, to realize who you are in this physical suit, and to make choices and to have those experiences. Because think about it, without this physical suit, we're just floating around in some sort of consciousness.
We have 888 viewers right now.
Great. Fantastic. I love that. That's fantastic. 888. So, once you get to that point of understanding who you really are, when you look in the mirror, that's not who you are. That's just the vehicle. It's just the suit. But once you go beyond that and you begin to ask the big questions, which we are coming into right now, this is what's happening to us. We're asking the big questions. And you begin to get the answers. Now everything else starts to fall by the wayside. Things that you don't need anymore, beliefs you don't need anymore. And now you're beginning to create your reality from a higher perspective. And that's what's happening to society. That's exactly what's happening to society. Do we need governments? No. Governments that are like in unelected bureaucrats somewhere? No. Do we need religions that control the masses? No. Do we need a monetary system that's completely controlled? No. You see, it's stuff like that that's being revealed to us. But unfortunately, many people can't see it. They cannot see the deeper purpose of life, the meaning of life, or themselves. And I say it's about 70 to 75% of the population can't see. They're very simplistic in their view of the world. And maybe that's what they're supposed to do. But then there's the 15% of us around the world that are getting it, that see more, that want to participate, that want to make a difference, that want to create, that want to have different experiences. And those are the ones that are going to lead the charge in this new era, of not following the same old thing over and over again, the old belief systems that are drilled into us over and over and over again. You must be a good little Christian. You must be a good little Jew. You must be a good little Muslim. You must go to school and get these 29 degrees so you could have a great job. All of this stuff is limiting. It's boxing us in to the old system. And so the future is going to be about information. It's going to be about more compassion, understanding for our fellow man, and then more of not doing things in the same way. And, the rebel energy will keep coming out. There's no stopping that, especially with all the Aries energy that'll be at play. And that's just in the next couple of years. And that's what I'm seeing here. So these challenging months like we have this month, this is going to raise the vibration high enough, and it's going to put pressure on people to want to change, to move, to get out of a bad relationship, to get out of a bad situation with their work, to get out of a bad situation within themselves. You see, that's what, these challenging energies do to us. They force us to change.
Yeah, you mentioned like a 70-75% figure, or NPCs. That's basically what you said. The nice thing is that awakenings can be very quick. Consciousness shifts typically are almost instant. Of course, you can have many throughout your lifetime, or even just in a single day, for example.
Right.
But that number, I mean, I don't know how accurate that number is, but it's probably ballpark. That number could change very rapidly as we go through these energies. And so that is very encouraging that we already actually have so many people that are on that faster evolutionary growth process as it relates to their consciousness. It's not like, I mean, supposedly, some people can reach nirvana in a second, but I find myself constantly, learning new things and growing in consciousness and mindfulness. But it's really the direction that matters. And so as more people just align to that direction, I think it's a magnetism that in general we need to build, that because we are all magnetic beings, if that is a stronger magnetic field, you could say, then people will align to that. And then they may be here. And so that's when grace comes in, because not everyone's going to be here or here or here, but eventually people are on this, you could say, conveyor belt, or path towards greater spiritual awakening and soul purpose and everything, and realizing that universe is there to guide them and support them in that. Like, I had to take a big leap of faith when I quit my job and started YouTube and traveling around the world, and it's worked. But I've also very much been 100% rooted in truth and just being authentic and real, and also very compassionate. Like, as a YouTuber, you get a lot of trolls, and it'd be very easy to they write something nasty, it'd be easy to write something nasty back. But you just have to look at it like, this person's just having a bad day. They're just not there yet. Like, how can they say something? It's like, well, here's the actual research paper, but you don't have to say, here's a research paper, you dummy. It's like a small shift. It's a small shift, but it makes a difference. Like, no, you can actually just respond to them with, here's a research paper, not take the ego, not let it add that little jab in there. And that makes a big difference, because I've had a lot of people, I think, start off kind of aggressive with my channel, but then they actually get converted because they're like, oh, he's just genuinely out here to help people. And if that is our background mission, everyone, then things change really quick.
Yeah. Well, once you're on your path, like you just described here, and I went through the same experience. Once I was on the path, the doorways began to open.
Yeah.
And Joseph Campbell beautifully said it, when you follow your bliss, the doors open. And it's so true. When you're in the right, on the right track, things begin to happen. People begin to show up. Money begins to show up. And it's an amazing thing to watch and see as it begins to unfold. Unfortunately, like I said, many people don't see that because they've been blocked in insecurity and fear, which is a lower vibration. That's all it is. It's a lower vibration, and it holds you down. And so we're going through this time where we're breaking through all of that, especially this month, as we talk about the astrology in a minute, as we get to that, August 19th, explosive energy with Uranus and the full moon. And that energy is meant for us to break barriers. It's meant to charge through and say, enough, I'm done with this. I'm not going to look at the world this way. I'm going to look at it this way. I'm going to go do what I want to do. Screw the politics and the politicians. I'm going to do what I have to do. That's what the energy is doing. And so It's not doom and gloom and the end of the world crap. It is breaking cycles within yourself, your belief systems, the ideology, the religious beliefs, your financial limitations that you place upon. I mean, I remember reading comments, on the last video about people, we poor people can't afford to prepare for what's coming. And I'm like, wow, You're saying we poor people, you're already basically the folks that said that are limiting yourself. You're basically putting yourself into a box saying, I can't afford this. I don't have this. I don't know how to make more money or whatever it is. And so it's a limiting belief. And so all I'm trying to get people to do is realize in the moment when you're doing things or thinking certain things, pay attention to that subconscious, pay attention to what you're saying to yourself, because it makes a difference. The source does not respond to your begging and pleading and wanting things. No, it responds to your frequency. If you're someone that's, like you said, opened and I'm going to go on my adventure and I'm going to see where it goes and take a chance, and then the universe goes, okay, great, we'll help you, we'll bring you things.
Yeah.
But if it's on the other side, oh, I'm not good enough, I'm not smart enough, I'm not sure. Source goes, okay, I'm not sure, you're not sure, great, we're going to give you more. We're going to give you more uncertainty.
That's it's the way I view it. I mean, there's definitely people at various stages, and some of them can be very rough. I mean, some people have had very difficult life experiences, and I believe that we sign up for that. That's my belief. Yep. And so we kind of choose our fate. And I think what happens is we will keep getting these experiences until the situation is so strong that it forces that consciousness shift. And the thing about consciousness is that you can have a shift with very little input. You can also have a shift with a tremendous amount of input. Right. Because consciousness is, one aspect is being able to see the details. Do you just see a white wall, or do you see a white wall with all the different little speckles and everything? And so if you're able to see all the little details, then the shift can be smaller. It doesn't have to be such a strenuous life circumstance.
Right.
But yeah, that mindset thing is like, I think it's also a truth thing, like looking very truthfully at your situation. Let's say you do have financial problems, being very honest with that. Like, I do have financial problems right now. Like, my bank account's not full, not gaslighting yourself, but at the same time, still holding that frequency of abundance. But now it's going to change. Like, now I bring this into my life and not letting the past results change and color your future expectations. And that's the trip up, because we can recognize the truth of the situation, but also move forward in a way that will get us out of perhaps that difficult situation.
Absolutely.
Because I'm not a fan of beating someone while they're down just because they might not have the right mindset. They might not have learned that yet. Right. And so any way that we can guide people towards holding like that frequency, you could say, or like, oh, I'm not good at tennis. Like, well, maybe in the past you weren't good at tennis, but you should play. And if you want to get good at it, I think you can. If you say you want to get good at tennis, then you'll manifest that.
Exactly.
A whole bunch of things like that.
Exactly. What I realized, Stefan, that it's the little things in life that matter. The little things, as we were talking about earlier, about showing compassion, about doing little things. These things add up. And I've listened to so many people who've had near-death experiences. And when they go through their life review, they remember those little things, like helping somebody cross the street, or helping somebody, with something else, or giving them money, or whatever it is. Okay. It's the little things that make the difference, because if everything is energy, which we know it is, when you put the wheels in motion of giving and, sharing compassion or kindness, it comes back to you. And that's what all of the light workers of the world, the people that are more enlightened or aware, are supposed to do at this time. We are the light bearers. We are the ones lighting the spark to many others to say, hey, remember who you are. Remember that. Don't beat yourself up. Remember that we're all going through these experiences right now. Yeah. And that this time brings in great change, tremendous change on a collective level. Pluto in Aquarius, Pluto in Capricorn, especially Pluto in Aquarius, the next 19 years. That's humanity transforming itself completely. Mm-hmm. And so that's what we're entering right now. And the energy from this month on to about May, and I already did a video on this, what the future holds of 2025, and I'll have a follow-up video to it. From the astrology perspective, is tremendous amounts of change. And now the United States will be the primary location for that change. So the people of the United States, because of the Pluto return, because of Uranus, because of the retrograde Mars, at the end of this year into next year, it will be opposing the Pluto of the United States. So the United States will be going through a tremendous change. Not to mention we have the elections that I've predicted may not actually happen or be delayed in some way this year. So these are going to be the next steps in, awareness and consciousness. It's already happening in England. It's happening around the world in other places. And so it's a necessity. So our job, you and I and many others like us, is to continue to share the light of truth, which is we are spiritual energy beings. We will do the best we can. We will connect with other people that are on the same or similar wavelength. We're not going to feed into fears and lies and manipulation. We're going to follow our path. We're going to do what we have to do, and then collectively we unite with people that are on the same page, for instance, in person or with family dynamics. And these are the groups that are going to be fine. Nothing's going to happen to them. It's the ones that are completely sort of oblivious to what's going on. Many people that just get wrapped up in the chaos, and they're the ones causing these ripple effects through time and space, which again is normal because this is what happens. Nothing is steady. Everything is in the quantum field. It's all energy moving around, moving about. And so this is what we're witnessing right now. So it doesn't matter whether we use the numerology, we use the astrology, or whatever method we use. It's just a symbolic language. And by the way, we're in an eighth month as well. In terms of the numerology, we're in an 8th year in an 8th month. So this is a very strong month for some sort of change, financial change, or sort of taking back our power, realizing who we are. Being more stronger and focusing on health and well-being. These are all part of the dynamics of August of this year.
And that's what I really touch on is the little details and focusing. If certain things aren't in alignment with your life, whereas where you want them to be, often it's, kind of your own personal transits that will make these shifts happen.
Right.
That's what I've noticed. But at any point, you can work with your body and your temple. And sometimes they're a little easier. Sometimes it might be a little harder, like Saturn opposite your sun, right? Transiting Saturn opposite your sun may be a little harder in terms of health and wellness, but you can always make an effort to, just eat healthier, be more consistent with your diet, go on walks more often, breathe fresh air, do breathing exercises, all this stuff, the grounding, the earthing. And I have a lot of earth energy. My chart, I have a grand earth trine. And so for me, this really resonates. Everyone's a little different. But when you do those things at the base level, fundamental frequency, and you get them established and they just become part of your reptilian brain, it's all programmed down here now, your cerebellum and stuff. It is just such a big wave of positive influence coming in because it now starts to build and build and build. And then you can stack everything on top of it. Your creative energies just explode. Your kundalini awakens. Your chakras align. Now you have the energy to do all these other things that before you didn't because you've just treated your body and your temple better. And, we're more than just this vessel, but we're also given this vessel to work with our consciousness and spirituality and to evolve it. So I think that's a really important component and why I like going to basics, because then it's not overwhelming. Earthing isn't overwhelming. It's like, just get your feet on the grass.
Right, exactly.
Fresh air.
Exactly. And so, again, I like to keep things simple. It's about just realizing who we are. It's realizing what we're going through. It's about this great awakening of who we are. And I just like to get to that message. And matter of fact, that's what I tell everyone now. Remember who you are. You're a spiritual energy being in that physical container having a human experience. And once you realize this, you begin to change your thought process. Okay? And so this is my message to everyone that, remember who you really are, that you're not your thoughts, you're not your fears, you're not your doubts, you're not your title, you're none of that. These are just experiences you're having. And this time right now, is the greatest moment in time for us in this generation and where we are right now, to awaken mass consciousness on a tremendous level. And when we do that, we affect everything on a larger scale. The ripple effect, the 100th monkey effect, where everything starts to move forward in a tremendous wave of awakening. That's what's actually happening collectively. Yeah. And so we feel it. We know, those of us in the spiritual community and even the scientific community, we know that something's happening. We have a lot of scientists out there that are on the same page now. I don't want to give out names, but they've been fantastic in
this.
Right. So that know that we're all consciousness, and they're not just science and A plus B and equals C and all this other stuff. So this is what's happening to us. The great awakening is occurring within us and outside of us. And so this is, when I look at the astrology, that's the best way I could, look at it. Uranus has been in Taurus, which is changing and transforming our values and our beliefs and our material side of life. Pluto is now left a Capricorn. It will actually visit Capricorn for just a few months, beginning in September, okay, which is the last look at all the structures and everything that's been controlling humanity. Then once it leaves there in November, it enters Aquarius. Now it's game on. Humanity's like, okay, what do we need to do? Let's move forward. No more of this garbage. No more of this politics. No more of this divide and conquer. Okay. And then we're going to be moving forward. And then the rebellious energy will be at play from November on because of Pluto in Aquarius, and it's moving forward. And so we are entering this time to shed as much belief and ideology and things and people and situations that don't belong in our lives anymore. That's the best way to say it. That's what's happening to us. And so this is what the astrology is saying. This is what my intuition has been saying. And I'm not the only one. I'm sure you're picking that up as well. But let's get back to the solar flares, because these are going to be significant turning points. Because I've noticed, especially the ones that hit us in July. Remember those heavy X flares that we had like within a week? Man, did I feel those X flares. It was like I was being supercharged, and I'm sure you were feeling the same thing. So these are going to play a pivotal role, I think, in society as well. When they hit, it's like we get juiced up, we get amped up with some sort of awareness or energy that we need to pay attention to, and our bodies feel it as well.
So, I can look at the chronograph to see if everyone's not aware, people that are fresh to the live stream, we had an X class flare today, 1.3, just a few hours ago. And so it takes usually a couple hours to get chronograph imagery. This lets us see if there was a solar flare associated and pushed out by that, or a solar storm pushed out by that solar flare. And I'm not sure it's fully caught up to date yet, unless I pull up a more kind of complex data source. But I'm not seeing anything come out of it yet, but let me go here. But it was pretty much Earth direct. This goes to 8 and then 8 p.m. UTC time. And this solar flare was at 1930. Yeah, so it's too early to tell. But the sun, I'm going to put the sun behind me really quick. Okay. So everyone can see this, because we have a tremendous amount of sunspots right now on the sun, and we have one that's exceptionally large, and I haven't done a video on this for a couple of days now, so I just want to show people Big Mama and some of the others, and so it should show up any moment. But yeah, the sun is a big agent in all this, and I think I think the fact that it's so visceral is why so many people have kind of joined into my channel, because they follow the astrology, for example, or maybe their other practices. But they're just feeling these big changes in their own energy. And if you are more health and conscious minded, for example, you could say, well, I've been eating the same thing for like 5 months now. It's not my diet. Like, what is causing this change? Why is my sleep all wonky? Well, maybe it was a geomagnetic storm. Maybe it was a big solar flare. There seems to be a big bioelectric link there. Right. Need a lot more data on that, but certainly I have my own kind of correlative experience. I feel way energized typically, but sometimes fatigued. But then other times, I have to put it back here. But then other times, it's a little bit of a different effect. But some people feel these really strongly. The more sensitive you are, the more you'll feel it.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, it's pretty amazing. Absolutely amazing.
This is
And
reversed for some reason, by the way. So this is actually, Big Mom is actually on this side. I don't know why it flipped.
That's okay. And we're also in solar maximum. We're in solar maximum. I mean, that's what is it, about 12 years of heightened activity around the sun. I mean, talk about, magnetic fields and energy moving towards us, and I've shown a picture of how big the sun is versus how tiny the earth is. I mean, it's just, tremendous amounts of energy that's going to hit us, especially. And I think we talked about this off camera in October, when we have the 4 gas giants that are going to be behind the earth and nothing is going to be in front of us. We have the earth and the sun right there. And some are speculating, like David Dubine has been speculating, that these are magnetic fields that these 4 gas giants are pulling upon the earth, upon the sun. And whatever comes out of the sun is going to go right through the earth, and so we may be in a very interesting time in October with solar activity. Do you get that sense too, Stefan?
Well, that's something I've been kind of feeling into and researching into. So if you talk about the solar system and magnetic fields, we have the sun, strongest magnetic field by far. I mean, each one of these sunspots has a magnetic field that's stronger than Jupiter's. And, the sun as a whole has a very powerful magnetic field. It goes all the way out into the edge of the heliosphere. That's actually, the interplanetary magnetic field is just the extension of the solar magnetic field, because it's carried by solar plasma, which is actual mass of the sun. And, these ions have charge to them, so they create these magnetic fields. The movement of ions creates magnetic fields. Then you have Mercury, which has a magnetic field that's about 1/100th the strength of Earth's. Mm-hmm. So Earth has a magnetic field going from 23,000 to 67,000 nanotesla. Mercury is about like 500 nanotesla, if you want to make it an average. So it's quite weak. Then Venus does not have a magnetic field. It's only induced. Mars does not have a magnetic field. Intrinsically, it's only induced. You go out, Ceres in the asteroid belt does not have them. It's once you got to Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, they all have powerful magnetic fields. And we really don't know much about the magnetic fields of Uranus and Neptune, because the only data we have on them is from Voyager. So Voyager 2 flew by them. And so we know some of the strengths. We know the properties are kind of unusual, but we don't know exactly how strong those fields are. But we know the magnetic field of Jupiter very well, and of Saturn. They're very powerful. And so when we're looking at the solar system with the sun at the center, very powerful magnetic field, taking gravity out of the equation, extremely powerful magnetic field. Mercury is there. Yeah, it's there, but it's not really that important in this grand scheme. All the outer planets grouped will have this pretty big magnetic pool, and the Earth is the only planet in our solar system with a significant magnetic field. Ours is quite strong, actually. We're right there at 1 astronomical unit. Jupiter's at 5, Saturn's at 10, Uranus is at 20, Neptune's at 30. And so they are then stretched out. Uranus's magnetic field is actually aligned to the ecliptic plane, which is really interesting. It's tilted almost exactly on that ecliptic plane. But them having this great kind of condensed alignment with the sun there, like creating kind of like an energy portal. I mean, there will be, we have to think of magnetic fields as fields of force, and like water running down a hill. It'll take the path of least resistance. So you will have these fields of force, kind of these channels and these grooves flowing that direction naturally because of that alignment. Now, how significant is it? I don't know.
Exactly.
But it will be lined up in such a way. And so that will be occurring during solar maximum. And then again, in 12 years or so, it'll happen again, because Jupiter will then rotate around. Saturn will be slightly different, though. So, yeah, this is kind of a rare alignment as it relates to this.
Well, in astrology, after strong solar eclipses, as I've said on my videos, the 3rd month, the 6th month, the 9th month, and then again 1 year later, the energy is still at play. And so, what I see coming in October, the first week or even the second week of October, is that alignment that we had with the solar eclipse of April. April, we had that very strong solar eclipse in Aries. So,
Yeah.
I'm thinking whatever's going to take place, astrologically or the magnetic fields, or even politically and socially, I think that is when we're going to see a lot of change in society and maybe even more change in ourselves. So I would keep an eye on the first and possibly the second week of October for this activity. And those four planets will be aligned in October, October 22nd, I believe it is, exact. And we have nothing between us and the sun. The earth and the sun are right there. And everything else is either to the side of us or behind us.
Interesting thing about October, November is that's when something known as the Russell-McLaren effect is the strongest. And basically, it's just the magnetic vector orientation of the solar wind is more preferentially aligned to connect to Earth. So right now, we're kind of coming off of solstice. During solstice and slightly afterwards, you have the weakest connection between solar wind and Earth's magnetosphere. And so if you have a strong solar storm launch, let's say July, it can definitely trigger geomagnetic storm, but it's less likely, and the effect is going to be subdued. But you have the stronger effect during the equinoxes, which is interesting. And the spring equinox, or the March equinox, if you want to be inclusive of the whole globe, that is when that effect is stronger but than the solstices. But the fall, or the October equinox or September equinox, and then going into October, that's when it's strongest. And they show this big disparity with solar maximum. So solstices are down here. You have March equinox and you have September equinox, and then it rounds over into October. And so that would be the best time to have a powerful geomagnetic storm just based on the actual alignment of these magnetic fields. Now, whether we do get a solar flare then, I don't know. But that it would be the primo time for a huge shakeup.
Yeah, I could see that. I was just looking out my window because the wind has just picked up outside my window and it's starting to get dark out. Every day we get these, a heavy thunder and lightning where I'm at in northern Arizona.
Wow.
And it's been like clockwork. From 3 o'clock on, we have these events going on. I'm looking outside going, okay, maybe there's something going on now.
Well, hopefully we don't see your house just peel away in the live stream.
Well, I'm in an RV. I'm in my RV, which
is
pretty big, but it's still, the only problem is, the ceiling's right there. And so when the heavy rain comes down, it gets a little loud in here, but I've got the mic, I've got the mic here, so it shouldn't be an issue. But it's just really interesting how the wind picks up. And speaking of solar winds, I've always known that just being outside, and it's not just the jet streams on the earth, it's the solar winds that have been pounding away at the earth, changing some of the weather dynamics, you know. And so this is what people don't understand, especially in the movement of the those people that are going around the world saying, that we're affecting the weather. Yes, we contribute with the pollution, but there's something bigger going on here that's affecting the cosmic weather, which is affecting the Earth's magnetic fields, the jet streams, and so on, that is changing our weather patterns as well.
Yeah. In general, it just seems to be a polarity building. We have this polarization due to solar maximum. We have this polarization in our weather, like extremely hot in the northern hemisphere this summer. Australia is super cold right now, right?
Wow.
We've had some of the coldest winters in certain places recently, but also definitely we've had some of the hottest summers in certain places, or early hot temperatures. So it's less about global warming, though there is like a global trend. It's not just carbon dioxide, it's also more water, because if you break a hydrocarbon, you're creating either methane and carbon dioxide, but also you're liberating a lot of water. We're taking so much ancient water and pumping it into our atmosphere. And water contains consciousness and energy and information. So we're also bringing all this energy and consciousness from millions of years ago and quickly injecting it into our system. And so that's changing things. And we get this polarization that's building. And I think that's what's going to really trigger these big mass awakenings, you could say, of consciousness, because It's when you have that polarization and things are really black, really white, and then you can start to see how it's the change and the difference then lets you really perceive a lot more. And then you can start to see how things might actually not be black and white. And then we go beyond the whole polarity thing. But that
Exactly.
initial snap is driven by polarity in many ways.
Exactly.
We see that across so many different systems
Yeah.
that seem not connected to each other, but they are.
I totally agree. One of the things I saw in my visions, and many other psychics have seen this, and maybe you have as well, is the weather of the Earth was going to continue to change. And you mentioned water, and that was a significant dream or vision that I've gotten, that coastlines are going to have much more water hitting them. Bigger waves, intense storms. Just an example: this last hurricane in Sarasota. These folks have 3 feet of water on the street. Which is not too common. I mean, a foot or so, but now at 3 feet and 4 feet, it's almost as if the storms are more intense in some way. And so weather changes are going to be in effect in the next couple of years as well, I see. I was shown the vision of 2027, August and September of 2027, we're going to see more volcanic activity and more either tsunamis or tidal waves hitting shorelines. And this, again, has something to do with the magnetic fields that are changing. And we know this because magnetic north has been moving over the last 20 years. It has absolutely moved. And so this is causing some of the changes as well. So there's a physical component to all of this, change with the energy and the magnetic fields and so on that is absolutely taking place.
Yeah, I read a research paper by Rycroft, I believe it is. He's a researcher who looks into the global electric circuit, which is some really good stuff that he's written. And in one of his papers from like in the early 2000s, basically they're like, well, when we did our calculations and let our models run out, they showed a 20 times increase in electrical activity for the Earth, just because there's more latent heat in the atmosphere and in greater thunderstorm activity. So you have a 20x increase in lightning. Now, how accurate is that going to line up with reality? We don't know. But it was a very significant increase. And that does seem to be occurring. More lightning means stronger Schumann resonances, which are connected to our consciousness. So we're going to be able to connect to each other easier in the collective as a result of that. You pick up other people's energies and you feel their thoughts and you hear them, things of that nature will be amplified. But as it relates to things I've seen, I guess I have different definitions of like visions and such of that nature. I've just had dreams, and so I call them dreams, right? And so I don't put much into them, but I have had multiple dreams. Take this for what you want, folks. This is just my own dreams. What they mean is up to you. But I've had multiple dreams of the Earth being totally blasted with electricity. And one in particular, and I know there's differences in dreams when they're hyper vivid. So I've had hyper vivid dreams before. Many times, but hyper vivid dreams on this. And one of them was that I was on a small airplane flying into an island, and there was this massive electrical storm that was near the water, and the shore of this island and like going up the slope of it had all these metal transformers on it, basically these antennas. And this electrical storm was zapping them, and they were harvesting the energy from that. But we were on this plane circling, like going like this around, and it was just this massive wall of electricity just zapping the island like crazy. I've had other storms of other dreams of massive storms rolling in. In one of them, there was only some of us that were ready. We hunkered down in this building, and then there's a whole bunch of people outside before the storm came in, kind of clueless. And when the storm cleared, all of a sudden they were gone. And so it's like a consciousness thing. Like some people made it out the other side. I've had so many dreams about these massive electrical storms. Maybe it's just because I research this stuff and I find it interesting. And so it's loaded into my subconscious. But the ones that are more vivid feel like my consciousness is actually just jumping to a different part of the timeline and just going forward in the future. That's what it feels like to me, but I don't want to make this
Well,
into some prophetic claim, right? But it's
right.
very interesting.
Oh, absolutely. You're absolutely correct. Your subconscious is reading into something that you're doing right now, but it's also giving you glimpses into the future, possible timelines, because everything's a possibility
Yeah, yeah,
in the
yeah.
quantum field. Everything's a possibility. Now, here's the beauty of astrology. When we know Pluto is in Aquarius, the sign of lightning and strikes and revelations, and we know Uranus, the planet that rules Aquarius, is in Gemini, okay, for the next 7 years into 2026, from 2026 on. These two symbolically represent everything you just mentioned: shocks and awe, electricity, sudden awareness, sudden power outages, sudden electrical storms. We've already seen these around the world. I've
Yeah.
displayed, plenty of pictures on this, especially in the Scandinavian countries, because they're higher to the North Pole, and so we're already seeing some of these electrical storms being activated. So let's just say in the next couple of years, and it's very possible because everyone that's in tune or understands what's going on has had the vision of a solar flash that hits the earth so powerful that it either knocks out electricity or knocks out cell phone towers or something along those lines. So I think that dream that you just had is part of that vision or the possibility. And again, it's only a possibility, but something may be active or be activated, that it does happen and it knocks out, let's say it hits a major city. We have a solar flare, an X12, X14, whatever it is, and it's directed at a region on the planet. For sure that there's going to have cell phone issues, maybe even electrical grid issues. There's going to be all kinds of activity in that region having to do with electronics, correct?
Yeah.
So
The effect will be amplified in the high latitude regions,
right,
specifically for Northern Hemisphere. Really, is where that would be amplified
right,
because that's where most of the charge flows down. But we also have the South Atlantic anomaly that lets in more of this energy overall, just because the magnetic field is weak there.
right.
And that's a very interesting place. You also get it's interesting that we have this anomaly, this dent in Earth's magnetic field, right where we have some of the biggest crystal deposits in Brazil and in Colombia.
Right.
And the people there are very spiritually in tune. I kind of had like a Brazilian girlfriend, you could say, a little, not a girlfriend, but kind of for a little bit in 2019. And she was part of this awakening process for me because she'd be like, can you feel it? Like, can you feel the energies right now? I was like, feel what? But eventually I was like, but then she was like this reminder to okay, like tap into that intuition. And I started to build that sense, but she was always right on it. She's down there in the thick of that, in that energy vortex of Rio.
Exactly.
And so that's a big area too, as it relates to awakening. I mean, how many people live in Brazil, right? Almost 300 million. We Americans were very self-focused, and there's a lot of stuff happening in the USA chart and stuff of that nature for sure. And as it relates to the world, we're very important. No one can deny that. But there are a lot of things happening in a lot of other places that are very significant. And I think it's going to shock a lot of people once we start to look in other places. It's one of the benefits, I think. That's one of the reasons I wanted to travel, so I could have a greater worldview and appreciation.
Sure, absolutely.
To broaden the scope.
Absolutely. And I agree. The only difference right now is because the United States is going through its Pluto return. For those of you that don't know what a Pluto return is, it's when Pluto, at the origination point of the chart, it goes back to its original point. And then next year, going into 2026, we have Uranus going back to its return. Now, Uranus return, right, it causes more chaos than the Pluto return. This is rebellious. This is technology. This is awareness. This is, it's more chaotic. And so just look at the history, and I'll post it. Every time we've had a Pluto return, which we've had, I think, 3 of them.
You mean Uranus return?
Uranus return. You're right. We've had tremendous change, from the beginning of the country in 1776, and we had the fighting and the battles. Then we went into I believe it was 63 or 64, Civil War, right? Then we fast forwarded again, right? World War II, and now we're going into it again, Yeah, I mean, it's already happened, but maybe this is going to be a different type of revolution. This
I'm
will
gonna
be
be
a
so happy
technological.
for my thumbnails. It's gonna be so easy to
Yeah,
make thumbnails. This is just
right,
always
exactly, right. So this could be a grand awakening, but there's also the physical component of it, the electrical component of it, the magnetic field component of it. We can't discount that given the astrology of it all. And so I think it's going to happen simultaneously. Everything is happening simultaneously anyway. And I think those of us that are awakened will continue to awaken and move to places that we need to be in and hold a certain frequency. And those that are in these chaos zones will go through tremendous changes, and they'll awakening at some, they'll have a different experience at that point. So it'll be everyone, everyone's going to have a different experience. But
yeah.
my message is whatever information comes out, don't go off the deep end. Don't think it's the end of the world, because it's not. It's the end of the old world. It's the old ways, and that's how I see it. And even if power goes out, be prepared for stuff like that. In my last video, I said, look, we have a really challenging month. The electricity is going to be through the roof. Right. Stay centered, prepare the best way you can, whether it's supplies or your friends and family, whatever it is. It's not out of fear. It's just being smart, because these changes are going to continue to come in. This is not, as I said earlier, this is not a docile, passive, yeah, everything is great. And it is to a certain extent, but the waves of energy that are keep coming in are going to keep kind of pushing and pulling us into making necessary changes. That's what I see.
I think it's also good to highlight the fact that we've had some really big transits that have occurred in recent history that we're still riding on. And so it's not like it's not like I've never ran a mile before and now I'm going to the Olympics. It's like, no, we've been training for this. Like we may not be at Olympic speed yet, but we've definitely been going through a lot. I mean, the whole conjunction sequence that occurred in Capricorn, through like 89 through 94 or so, that whole zone.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's what led to the World Wide Web and where we are now. And then like the Uranus-Pluto conjunction with the moon in 65, sextile Neptune. I mean, that was huge. People carry these energies with them in their chart, like in their aura, because they're born at that time. And so there are many ways, like, they're also incorporating all that and bringing it back, and letting us work with those experiences. A lot of people with Pluto and Leo that are now going to be going through their own Pluto opposition. And so we have a lot of very wise, experienced people that are here to lead us and guide us. Thankfully, we're not going to completely blind, thank God. We also have a lot of leaders, right? Who that's the part of the awakening process, is seeing past the guys and actually, moving beyond people on a podium who we really shouldn't be listening to or following. And I hope that happens. And I think it's going to be really that shift into Aries is going to help us to see kind of things more clearly, but at the same time, much more impulsive, like you're talking about. So hopefully we make the right impulse in the right direction.
I totally agree. I'm seeing this, as I say, we're watching political theater. We're watching a show right now. And it's obvious to me, I'm sure it's obvious to you, the players involved right now on a larger scale, whether it's politics or government or the ones behind the scenes, pulling the strings, the big money people. We're seeing all of it. We're seeing all of them for who they are, what they are, and how they're, controlling the system. And this is very important to see. This is why I love Whitney Webb, and I keep promoting her, because she connects the dots when it comes to financial matters, when the politics and all this other stuff. So it's part of the awakening process. She's doing her part to help awaken humanity. We're doing our part to help awaken humanity. And as we continue to do this, we won't feed into the same system and ideas anymore. It's just going to, be like, nope, no more of that, no more of this nonsense. And we'll have to birth a new way of doing things, which I believe is going to be getting back to the basics, which means smaller communities, which means valuing life, valuing in all its forms, and staying away from the fear and the drama and the chaos and negativity, and just enjoying yourself. It's really about getting back to the basics. That's I think the most important part right now. And that's why I'm in nature all the time, and I'm in northern Arizona, small town, enjoying myself because I realize that I need that connection, that feel. And you live by the water there, and so I'm sure you're a water person. You like going to the water or by the beach. It makes you feel whole. It makes you feel good. You don't have to think. It's just you feel the connection. So I suggest to anyone, get into nature and realize who you are and meditate. That's the key. I do it every day. I just say to myself, I realize I'm this spiritual being having this human experience. I'll do the best I can. Everything will work itself out the way it's supposed to. I will keep going down the path that I need to go on, and then I'll do my best to help and be the best I can be. That's all we could do,
Yeah.
And so that's how I see it. And this month, the energy is going to get intense, no doubt about it. And so whatever happens, just stay centered within oneself, centered.
We often, I see it's common, and we all do
Right.
to some degree, it seems, that there is this action loop. And so, I mean, this is very much social media in that you have some information coming in,
Right.
and then you have this kind of desire to learn more and more and more about it. But at the end of the day, it's like, let's just actually take the action now needed, which in many ways is, let's say, like grounding, meditation, breath
Right.
work, doing some oming, just changing your frequency
Right.
itself. And so
Right.
it's good to be aware, but there's also like this awareness entertainment aspect. So yeah, I think it's a good time to take some questions.
Oh, sure. Okay.
And so if we have any questions on either chat, please call it out with one of our handles to make it more visible. And let's stay on topic with Lionsgate. Happy Lionsgate, everyone. Everyone that's given a super thanks to either one of us. God bless you all.
Right.
Hope you've enjoyed our conversation. First time that we've done this.
Right.
And so I hope you found what we've talked about valuable, giving you some inspiration, a little bit of a heads up for this month, for the rest of this year, for the rest of this decade. And yeah, just wishing all of you well. Hope, here to be of service for you.
Exactly. That's it. That's why we did this,
So if you'd like to take the first question, that's fine by me. So when you see something that pops up, then I would say just grab it.
I'm seeing a lot of comments on the form that we're using, and
there's a slight delay.
Yeah. And to all those folks on my live stream, I'm sorry about that. You can't hear Stefan. We'll figure this out, and maybe
It's been fixed. They had to reboot.
Yeah. And so, but I'm just trying to read some of them. A lot of them are just comments. They're not really questions that I'm seeing here.
Here's one.
Go ahead.
I think I can show it.
Yeah, go ahead. There you go. On the future of money and wealth. Do you want to take that one, or would you like me to comment on it?
I'll go first. It'll be very quick. I think things are moving decentralized. So I think there's a lot of issues with, let's say, like cryptocurrency, but I think just in general, we need to move back to fungibility, which is cash, right? You're able to give $20 to someone. They can do that with whatever they want. So anything that's decentralized and fungible at the end of the day will be the winner.
I agree.
We hope. But it's going to take some time.
Yes.
But really, the fungible aspect is important. Not just decentralized, but fungible. It has to be anonymous to some degree.
Right.
But then, yeah, there's a lot of ways it's going to evolve, but I think we need to get back to that.
I totally agree. The future of money will include digital currency of some form. I've always said there's going to be competing currencies at the beginning, maybe the first 5 years or so. But going back to cash or a gold-backed currency is definitely in the works. This is what a lot of the professionals have been saying, that eventually we're going to have something backed by precious metals, and we already have it. The BRICS nations already have a currency backed by gold. So it's already there. So it's just a matter of time before it comes to our shores. Once we get rid of this election nonsense and some of the trash gets taken out. So the future of money will be some sort of real currency. We'll have the digital currency. That's not going away. So you'll be able to pay with things with digital currency. And so I think we'll have different forms of ways of paying for things. But I agree. We need something that's real in our hands. You can't use that plastic card and constantly use that, because you're going away from the real value of exchanging value. Money is a representation of value. That's all it is. I value you for your time. I value you for your product or service. And here it is. Use this money in good faith and go buy whatever you need to buy. So it's something that we need to return to. Also, gold and silver will continue to be very important, because it's always been real money, and it doesn't lose its value. That's the best way to ensure your wealth is by having a small amount of gold and silver in your possession. All right.
Yeah, I agree. I've recently started doing that, which has been fun. I don't have much, but I like different coins.
Right.
And I'm trying to find more questions here. There's not that many coming in. I mean, there are, but
right.
We can follow on this one with this one until we get more questions. Keep it on topic, please.
Right. Why is gold so special? Well, it's always been used as a sense of value. It's we don't have a ton of it, it's used in so many different ways. So this is why it became very valuable. But silver is going to continue to be valuable because it's going to be in everything. It's in electronics. It's in solar panels. It's in dental fillings. I mean, it used to be anyway, but it's being used. So gold and silver will always be in demand or have some sort of value to it because of the way we could use them. So it's not just a currency. So
next question here is, how will the next few months affect our grounding? So just to keep it, there's, I think, a lot of ways that this can be answered. One thing that's interesting, and I'll mention with you, I did a muscle testing in a biotherapy session. Mm-hmm. And so while I was in this deep parasympathetic state and she was muscle testing me for yes, no answers, we asked some questions just to the cosmos. So one of them was about grounding. And I said, is it connected to Jupiter? And my body said no. It gave the no response. I don't know how this really works. It's like, anyways, but then I asked, is it connected to Saturn? And there was a big yes. And Lynn, she's up in on the East Coast. She's fantastic. I mean, she's great. And so there's some connection with grounding and Saturn. And so as of the next few months, we have all this solar energy coming in. We've been having this, but if it continues to increase, the energetic currents in the ground surface will get stronger. So the earthing effect should be faster. If you're building up charge, you will, you dissipate to the ground. But in terms of getting the unique information of the earth stored in these electric currents, every current contains energy and information, right? That transmission should be faster because the current is stronger. And so I think we're going to be getting these intuitive earth downloads even faster as we go into this very charged period that we're in already, but all the way through the rest of 2024.
I think that's a great explanation because it makes a whole lot of sense. The earth has an iron core, and if there's more waves of energy coming in around that magnetic field, absolutely, we're going to feel it. Go outside in nature once again, just for 10, 15 minutes a day, maybe without your shoes, and get grounded. This could help. And while you're there, yes, you may get flashes of inspiration or thoughts. Every time I go walking, and I do this every day, sometimes twice a day, I will get moments of clarity or information that just comes out of nowhere. I'm not even thinking about it, and boom, it shows up because you're getting so tapped into the energy that it's opening up to you, And so that's the best way I would suggest, for the grounding part of it. Spend time in nature. That's what I do, and that's what I'm going to suggest people do.
Yeah. A lot of ways to do that. Grass, oceans, right? If you don't have grass, for example, let's say you have like clay or just dirt, you can actually, if you wanted to, you could take some water, add some salt, and dump it in that area, and that'll increase the conductivity because of the salt. Create a little bit of a channel coming up from deeper because the electric currents are stronger at depth. So if you can help bring those up, a tree does that naturally with its roots.
Right.
I would like, if you would like to answer this question first, that's fine by me. So an 888 portal, energies come through the portal. Is there a reversal? I think what they mean by that is like, can we talk about how the energies come through the portal, but then also the energies that we put into the portal?
Well, yeah, we could. I mean, everything is always constantly going back and forth. We're a direct connection to the source. And so when we get supercharged like this, you tune into yourself and see what's going on. And I think what she's talking about is manifesting easier or faster.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But there's a trick to manifesting. Everyone thinks it's just praying to something or just putting your dreams out there. No, it is literally envisioning that which you seek and it already happening. So now you're creating a timeline for what you want. And the key is, this is the key, what people don't understand. You must let go of that, whatever it is that you want, or that connection, or that understanding. You have to sever ties, because as long as you're still connected to it, the source energy still thinks you're lacking something or you're asking for something. So it's more of a centering yourself, envisioning what needs to come or what you want to manifest, and then letting it go. And then it'll come back to you. It's like the universe is a giant hologram. Whatever you put into it, it comes back to you. So the fact that we have this 8-8 portal right now, it's a higher frequency and vibration. Use that for your body. Empower your body. Raise the vibration in your body. Get the endorphins running in your head. That's what I do. After a walk, I do some stretching, empower myself in the sense that my body is strong, that I'm going to get information, I'm going to be in tune. And it's very simple. I'm not asking for anything. I'm just more in alignment with it. So I would suggest being in alignment with the energies and then letting it, reveal what it needs to reveal to you.
I think, yes. I think half of it, to add on just a little bit, is that just being even aware of it. Just even being aware of this energetic kind of opening is really a lot of it too, because your subconscious is always manifesting. And so if you work to have your subconscious nice and clean and you have your base desires that are in alignment with your soul purpose, life mission, then just being aware that's there, spirit will kind of do the rest. But of course you can bring more consciousness and awareness to it. And that'll make the process, I think it would expedite it, but again, divine timing is also a thing. It'll happen when it's meant to happen.
Exactly. What are bartering?
There's a lot of questions. It's hard to read them and also pay attention to you at the same time.
Yeah, I'm seeing some now. People are now like Karen has one and says barter ? Absolutely. Mm-hmm. It's the best way to exchange value with somebody else by bartering. You don't need the middleman. So that's definitely a plus.
Yeah, my dad used to do that all the time. He had a bakery. And so he would he had this dentist and he would give him like $400 worth of bread and stuff. He would load up his freezer with a stone oven bread and he was like, okay, pull my tooth now.
Right. Exactly. I'm all
and
for
wine.
That. Right. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. Especially if something you're creating like bread or something like that. It's awesome. I see another question here that you have up there. I think the core of the planet is actually a star. Yeah, well, here's one of the things that I learned years ago when I first did the first magic mushroom experience I had ever. It showed me that we are all stars. We are made up of the stardusts. We are all sort of tiny stars. Our spirit, I'm not talking about our bodies, our spirit is a spark of a star. And so we are part of the universe, and we are all stars. So including the Earth, it's some form of star or energy. And we know the sun is a star. So
here's another one.
Okay.
And I chose this one because, please,
Joe,
give us a heads up.
Well, right now, Venus is in Virgo and Mercury is in Virgo retrograde. So Virgos right now are overthinking everything and, worrying about stuff. And rightly so, because Venus in Virgo is going to be opposing Saturn and squaring Mars and Jupiter in Gemini come the 14th and then going into the 22nd. And then we're in Virgo season after that, where the sun moves into Virgo. So you guys, because Virgo is such an intelligent sign, but they are analysts. They love to analyze everything. They tend to worry a little more than normal because they're thinking about every possibility. And, Virgo is the sign of the perfection. The reason it's the virgin, it's because it's purity of consciousness. It wants perfection. So Virgo energy, at its core, subconsciously, is constantly striving for perfection. And when it doesn't get perfection in whatever area of life, they get frustrated. And so, but it's just constantly analyzing. So right now you're in your element, but after the 22nd is a better time for Virgos because now the sun has entered Virgo, which is a much more powerful force.
Yeah.
So, but that just means right now, especially with Venus in Virgo, is socializing, interacting, enjoying yourself more. Venus is about pleasure. And so I would say do all those things right now. Enjoy your life the best you can and do little things. I've always said, do the little things that make you happy. That's the key.
That's where Virgo really excels. And that's why I actually don't think Mercury retrograde, especially this one with like Virgo being in the mix, is just really causing us to very much focus on those little details. And that's where the magic is. I mean, you need to see the big picture too, but to get to the top of the mountain, you got to make sure you have the right shoes, you pack enough water, right? You're not getting there if you aren't prepared. And so those small details really do matter. And I can speak to those things that you said. I think once Virgo can learn to calm and quiet the mind, then things are really great in many ways. But that's definitely a big factor. And so, yes, Virgos are feeling these energies maybe a bit more because we have a natal placement there, whether it's rising, moon, sun, whatever. But in general, that's also coming up for everyone's Virgo, right? Everyone has some Virgo in them.
Everyone has all these, Stefan, everyone has all these signs in our birth chart. They may not have planets in them, but there's a house that's ruling that area. So we have all 12 of the zodiac signs in our birth chart. And it's just a matter of knowing where what's controlling what area of the chart. That's all it means. Do
you know anything about indigo children?
Somewhat. These are higher vibration kids that have come in on very strong timelines, and usually the outer planets are the indicators. So, for instance, the kids that were born in Pluto and Sagittarius, very highly intelligent, natural visionaries. They're just higher vibrational beings. And I've seen myself personally, I've seen many children, that have never been here before. In other words, their soul has never incarnated on this planet before. And they have these big, beautiful gray or bluish eyes that are just screaming, wow, this is an amazing place, and those are the indigo kids. Those are the ones that are, and you could always tell by the eyes and their energy. You could just feel their energy, just like a dog could feel someone's energy, whether they like them or not. Everything is energy. And so these indigo kids are still coming in today. But, I think a lot of them came in after 2008 in that time zone. And now we're in this place where some of these kids that are coming in the Pluto and Aquarius generation, almost all of them are going to be indigo, which means they shine brighter. They have a high vibration. Well, now, the only thing that I would suggest to the parents is please don't inject those kids with 79,000 shots before the age of 10.
Yeah, especially now.
Right.
So the question I asked initially was because I saw this one. It says, what is our purpose as indigo children?
The purpose is to change the system, to shine your light, to connect with those souls that are on your wavelength, and to start and create something new. Okay, use technology, use your own energy to create something new, to get more in alignment with those souls that are on your wavelength. Okay, everyone at this time is here to witness the great changes of society, which means leaving the old systems behind. That includes monetary systems, religions, governments, social constructs that are going to be outdated, because the extraterrestrial component, okay, and the technology that's going to advance in the next 20 years is perfect for you guys, the indigo kids, because they're highly intelligent, like engineers and scientists, and they're looking to make a difference. They're looking to have a different experience, and they will. Okay, so you guys are here to make a difference in the technological era, the metaphysical stuff, absolutely teaching people about energy and healing, and also to connect with other souls. The more people that come together on the same vibration, the more powerful they become.
Yeah.
Okay,
That's resonance.
Right, exactly.
That's what I talk about a lot. And I honestly, I should really talk about that basically nonstop, because it's such a simple concept, but there's so many levels to it. Every time I go back into my thoughts in my study on resonance, I always come out with new realizations.
Right.
And it's fascinating how that works, because you can summarize it very simply. I mean, resonance is a shared energy and information between two systems, basically. You have two tuning forks that have the same frequency. You hit one, the other will start to vibrate. That's resonance. But there's so much depth to it. And yeah, our collective resonance, I think if there is this polarization that's occurring across the sun and our energy systems and astrologically, all these things, right? Our political structures, monetary, whatever, there does seem to be a congregation, though, towards a greater shared resonance at our deep core. And that will then be, I think, the kind of where everything then blossoms from. The new question on screen, kind of dovetailing with the indigo one, is for any Aquarians, do they get any cool superpowers?
Yeah,
For Pluto and Aquarius.
More visions. Aquarius and Sagittarians are the visionaries of the zodiac, especially Aquarians. Highly intelligent, scientific, but they see things happen sometimes a year, 2 years, 3 years down the line. And so the superpowers will be visionary ability to be able to make a difference in the future. That's going to be your superpower. So if you have strong Aquarius in your chart, absolutely use that ability to make a difference in the future. Okay.
I saw one question. I can't find it anymore to put on screen, but it's basically saying, can you talk about the relation of, like, is autism a different type of consciousness? And it is, clearly, because it's a different kind of operating system for the brain. But how does that relate to kind of this whole theme that we have with indigo children, starseeds, Aquarians, right? This new age that we're entering into of greater consciousness.
That's a great question, because I've studied a lot of people with mental impairities or retardation or cerebral palsy and so on and so forth, and I've come to an understanding of it. People that have autism come in under a certain frequency. The parents have a certain frequency, so they bring in the child. Depending on if it happened naturally, if they were born with the autism or it was induced through the shots. Okay, two different things. When you have someone who's autistic, what you basically have is a child that comprehends things in a different way. In other words, it's like a computer. Depending on the software it has, it computes in a different way. In an autistic child, you have a system that is slowed down to one level where the subconscious mind is maybe more open and more receptive to information, whereas the conscious mind is not involved, at all. I'll give you an example. When we go to sleep, when we go into that deeper delta sleep, or the our conscious mind is not involved directly. It's the subconscious that takes over. It's the same thing in autistic children. So they have, I don't want to say an imbalance, but it's one is higher than the other, and they perceive things through one than they can't do the other.
Like wider pupils almost. It's more light coming in, but harder to differentiate.
Exactly. And so being so connected to the spirit and the subconscious, you're opening to a higher realm of awareness. This is why I love watching some of these kids who say they have indigo. The parents say they have, issues, and they're great pianists, or they can play the violin, or they have these gifts because there's nothing filtering them. Their mind is not in the way. It's the spirit coming through them, and they're able to take that energy and just let it flow through them. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
That's what I think autism is.
Well, what's fascinating too, connected to that, is how there's so many reports of people, let's say, getting a head injury. And one that's really notable because he made a whole career out of it afterwards. He had to. It was his drive and calling. He had this head injury and all of a sudden became an amazing pianist. And so before, never even like sat down and played. And all of a sudden, within like 24 to 48 hours, you can probably find the documentary if you Google it, folks, right? He was just playing everything. And there was zero training background. It's not like he did this as a kid, a little bit of training. It was just everything, just kind of, he became that resonance that connects to that energy. I think he just pulled it out of the information field and just put it straight into his hands and into the keys. And he was compelled, kind of, you could say like autistically or OCD, whatever, ADHD, to sit there and do this for like 12 hours a day. So it became his career, and he was, I guess he's, still supremely successful with this. But there's so many stories like that, which is really interesting to think about, how just some change in our antenna up here changes everything.
Well, Stefan, the opposite is true for people that are in these institutions, the mental institutions. There's too much information coming in and they cannot decode it fast enough. And so their system is overwhelmed. And they snap. The mind can only take so much and they snap. And that's why they're in these institutions. And so there's the opposite effect of autism. You know? So anyway, a few more questions.
Well, I'm looking, and I think, there's always more to pull from. There's a little bit of a time lag between us and then people asking questions. We had some super thanks come in. Thank you, Chris. But I guess there's one more I could choose. It's kind of silly, in my opinion. But we can play with it a little bit. Because I do have some info. Maybe we can change. What's a sun mean? The question is, how many suns do you guys think there really are? And so I think, what's our definition of a sun, first off? Like, the sun is the name of the star that's at the center of our solar system. But if we are talking about there being 3 suns in our sky, very much like Star Wars, right? Tatooine or whatever, no, we don't see that. But if we're talking about there being like a binary companion for the star, that's possible. They have ultra wide. They've, now that we've started to do these deep studies of space with new telescopes and satellites and everything that are really advanced, they've found a lot of ultra wide binary stars. So their companion is very far out. A lot of them are very close together, like Sirius, right? Sirius A, Sirius B. Alpha Centauri is actually 3. Alpha Centauri A, Centauri B, then Proxima Centauri is that binary companion. It's not ultra wide, it's further out. But they are seeing these stars that are ultra wide binary companions, which means that they're so far apart that you would think that they would not lock together anymore because of gravity. The gravitational effect of interstellar space is stronger than their gravitational effect, yet they still seem to be moving around each other. And so there's some physics at play as it relates to ultra wide binary stars that don't make sense. And so the rabbit hole that I went into for this course that I made, the Planetary Resonances e-course, I have 3 hours for that course dedicated on this, is precession of the equinoxes and how it could be potentially not based on some wobble of Earth's tilt axis causing this, change in our sky position every year, 1 degree every 72 with our current rate of precession. But perhaps we have an elliptical orbit through interstellar space, and that's because we're orbiting with a binary star, an ultra-wide binary. And this gets into the gray year and the yugas and everything, and it's like a 24,000-year cycle or 25,000 years, somewhere in there. I think it could even go beyond that. I talk about in my course how perhaps we don't have a permanent binary star, but there's all these brown dwarfs that are floating around kind of in our zone. And sometimes one brown dwarf floats in and we kind of get this effect, and then it kind of scoots away again because the gravitational effect of interstellar space and galaxy overwhelms it. But then another one swings in. It's like you have one marriage, you get divorced, you get a new one. And so there wouldn't be a clear precession cycle with that, but you would get this elliptical orbit that forms, kind of always changing and morphing. And I think that's kind of how I see this. But
I think you're absolutely correct. I see it the same way, except that I think the central sun is one of our most powerful suns that we have. This toroidal field of energy that the ancients talk about, that we know is there. There's something there that's so powerful, and we could only call it a sun. Maybe it's something more, but that would be one sun, and then we see the visible sun, and then everything else that Stefan just said, is right on point. We may have dwarf stars that are there that we just can't see, or they come and go, because we've discovered many of them over the years. So it's hard to say. I know, what Brooke is asking about, but I do believe we have at least two, the central sun and our sun, and then all of these other dwarf stars and other, bodies that are there, but maybe science just doesn't want to say anything about, for whatever reason.
Yeah, interesting thing about the central sun. You mean, was it Alicone in the Pleiades?
Alcyon.
Alcyon. Okay, that's how you pronounce it. And so the interesting thing about that is all the stars of the Pleiades are much younger than our star. And so if there is some sort of connection there, then it would be a relatively recent thing in terms of our understanding of time. Right. And so my general thought process that I have right now with this is that, okay, we see these ellipses form with planets around stars and asteroids and moons around planets and stuff. And so it makes sense that our solar system is traveling along some sort of elliptical path in interstellar space. And I imagine that just goes fractally out all the way, and that there's larger ellipses too. And perhaps at the center of that, or a big component guiding that, would be something like the Pleiades, because it's a whole cluster of stars. Yeah. So their net gravitational effect would be very strong. We know there's a lot of stars out there that are incredibly massive compared to our sun. But again, I think the big thing limiting us from understanding this scientifically is that our period of observation is so small.
Right.
It's only now, we have telescopes going back to like the 1600s, but in terms of modern ability to observe this, less than really 100 years in many aspects. So I think that's a big limiting factor.
Yeah, exactly. So no, well said, absolutely. So anyway, I got some really severe thunderstorms going on out here, so I have to pull in my awnings before they get ripped off. So we're gonna have to. Can you hear the rain? It's hitting the roof right now. Anyway, I think we'll wind it down here if that's okay with you, Stefan.
Sounds great. Yeah, just final message for everyone: just happy Lionsgate, right? Happy 8/8, and thanks, Joe, for I'm glad that my community recommended you, that you happened to watch my channel, enjoy my stuff, recommend me. So thank you for that. And all this kind of came out and was able to materialize, which is fantastic. And so just wishing everyone well, lots of love, light, blessings.
Absolutely.
Anything that you would like to say?
Thank you for putting this together, Stefan. Like I said, I've mentioned you before because I obviously resonate with your information and your work, and you do a great job there. And so I'm glad that everyone listening in got a chance to, get our perspective and keep the vibration as high as you can, and don't feed into any fears, no matter what information comes out. You can, in these physical containers having human experiences. And once you realize that, everything else is a piece of cake.
Yeah. Yeah, your feed is definitely cutting out of the thunderstorm.
Yeah, exactly.
We had nearly 888 viewers live almost the entire stream. So perfect. Thanks, Joe.
All right. Take care, guys.
We'll talk to you more.